the fact that it is possible to reconcile decades, even centuries long animosities. You can find an accommodation and a compromise which allows people with very different perspectives to coexist together. A lot of it is prior preparation and getting a trusted team around you that can give you wise advice when the crisis occurs, and also having built relationships with different stakeholders. Almost a kind of question of fixing the roof while the sun's shining. When things are slightly calmer, put the hours into making those contacts so that when there is a crisis, you can get good advice, look at the evidence, make a swift decision. And I very much think it helps to kind of get out there and make your point, provide that direction. You may not have all the answers initially, but it's best to be clear and resilient and calm in the face of a crisis, because that will instill confidence. And as I say, having that great team around you helps you project that and work out the next way forward. I think all of that is really crucial in successfully dealing with the sort of crises I faced. For example, when twice the institutions set up by the Good Friday Agreement were on the point of collapse during my time as Secretary of State. And so in both those instances, I got out there in front and made speeches and gave press conferences and set a direction and set a strategy and followed it. I think focus on the task at hand. There's always going to be distractions. Work to build coalitions to help you get through these periods of uncertainty. And I think, again, engage with those coalitions to keep them informed. I think so many problems can arise because people don't understand what's happening. So, for example, when I was in charge of preparations for exit from the EU, where they related to food and farming and border matters, I was just in constant touch with the stakeholder groups, the business groups, the transport companies, and other civil servants, and above all across governments as well, because you can't fix those problems individually as a Secretary of State in one particular department. So that putting in that effort of endless communication to make sure that people understand what is happening and feel that their voice can be heard, I think is absolutely crucial in giving people advice on how to get things done at a time of rapid change and uncertainty. Cybersecurity is the issue that always is at the top of my agenda, and I'm very conscious of the big risks associated with cybersecurity, and that's partly a reflection of the work I did as a member of the Intelligence and Security Committee, and that published some very hard-hitting reports on both Russia and China, both of whom are involved in prolific targeting of UK business intellectual property, its ideas, its science. There are all sorts of ways. In particular, in our report on China, the Intelligence and Security Committee highlighted the risk of business trade secrets and intellectual property effectively being stolen. And of course, we've seen instances of hacking attacks recently that have had a really devastating impact on some of our great businesses in the UK. So having a focus on that, a strategy to manage that risk is absolutely crucial. And also understanding, I think, secondly, that resilience in your supply chain is crucial, because the COVID pandemic showed very clearly our heavy dependence on China, and I think showed everyone, government included, that we need to make sure we've got broadly based supply chain, that we're not excessively dependent on one country, so that, again, if there is some kind of big hold-up or crisis, then our supply chains are resilient. So those are some thoughts I would share on the geopolitical landscape, which sees both China and Russia as not only of geopolitical relevance, but directly relevant to companies and the way they operate their cyber networks. I hope they will take away that everyone, if they really put the effort in, we can all make a difference, that it is worthwhile to stand for elected office because it is possible to change things for the better. I also would tend to reflect on themes about Northern Ireland in my speeches, and that is an inspirational story, and I hope people will take away from that the fact that it is possible to reconcile decades, even centuries-long animosities. You can find an accommodation and a compromise which allows people with very different perspectives to coexist together in a peaceful way. I also believe and hope people will take away the crucial importance of protecting the natural environment. That was something that I focused on throughout my time in public life, and I do feel that it's one of the most important tasks for all of us to make an attempt to hand the natural environment on to future generations in a better state than we found it. There can be almost nothing that's more important than that. And lastly, I hope people will take away that it's important to have women in leadership positions, that we have something to offer, that our perspective is worth listening to. I've seen so much change since I was first elected. At that stage, I was just one of only 17 women Conservative MPs elected in 2005, and subsequent parliaments had many more women. They were far more representative, and I think they made better decisions as a result. So just a few of the key points that I hope people will remember from speeches that I've made.